Bullies thought they owned the schoolyard until they knocked out a black girl's twin sister behind the bleachers, laughing like her pain was entertainment. What they didn't know, the girl they mocked shared blood with a professional MMA fighter who doesn't tolerate injustice or stupidity. 1 minute they were swaggering, spewing racist trash like they were untouchable. The next, the ground shook under the weight of consequences they never saw coming. Because when you attack someone's family, you don't just start a fight, you start a war. The sun was sliding behind the bleachers when the trouble began. One of those late afternoon moments when the teachers had already retreated into their cars and the school cameras didn't quite reach the far corners of the back lot. Westbrook High always felt different at this hour, quieter, looser, a place where rules evaporated and certain students felt untouchable. Today, that silence was about to be shattered. Zola had only planned to cut through the back of the field on her way home. Her backpack hung loosely on one shoulder, earbuds in, hair braided neatly the way her sister Zaria had done for her that morning. She didn't notice Cade and Mason until it was too late. Cade stepped out first, blocking her path with the arrogance of someone who believed the world belonged to him. Mason followed, twirling a baseball bat as casually as if it were a pencil. Behind them lingered two other varsity wolves, tall, broad, loud, the kind of boys who treated the school like their personal territory. Zola pulled out one earbud. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice firm despite the tension creeping up her spine. Cade smirked. "You, staring at us all week like you've got something to say. What's with that attitude, huh?" Zola frowned. "I wasn't staring at anyone. Move." He stepped closer. "Don't lie. You always give that look like you think you're better than us." She exhaled sharply. "I don't think about you at all." That was the wrong answer. The wolves closed in, forming a loose semicircle. A few students in the distance turned their phones toward the group, at first out of curiosity, then out of instinct. This was Westbrook High. After all, when the varsity wolves cornered someone, it never ended well. Cade leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to make it sting. "You people always act like victims. Maybe someone needs to put you in your place." That line detonated the moment. Zola's jaw clenched. "Say that again," Mason chuckled darkly. "Look at her talking big just because she's got braids." "Relax. We're just educating you." Before Zola could back away or even register the full meaning of what they said, Mason lifted the bat. For a split second, she thought he was bluffing. No way he'd actually. The bat slammed into her shoulder with a sickening thud. The force ripped through her body, sending her stumbling sideways. Pain burst through her nerves so violently she couldn't breathe. She barely had time to cry out before Mason swung again, this time at her head. The crack echoed through the backfield like a gunshot. Zola collapsed instantly, her legs folded beneath her, her braids spreading across the pavement like fallen vines. The world around her blurred into shades of gray before fading completely. A gasp rippled through the small crowd. Phones lifted higher. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, he actually hit her." Another said, "Is she dead?" Cade rolled his shoulders, completely unfazed. "Pathetic," he scoffed, nudging her limp form with his shoe. "Girl didn't last 5 seconds. Bet her sister's just as soft." He laughed. Mason laughed too, though his grip on the bat trembled slightly, just enough to betray the reality settling into his bones. They had crossed a line they couldn't undo. But Cade? He looked proud of it. One of the varsity wolves muttered, "Dude, this is bad." Cade snapped back, "Relax. No one's stupid enough to snitch." He was wrong, because while 4 phones had captured the attack, one of those phones was live streaming, broadcasting the entire assault to hundreds of viewers in real time. The comments flooded in at lightning speed. "Call 911. Is she breathing? Who are these boys? This is assault. Someone stop them." The live stream numbers ticked upward fast. Dozens, then hundreds. Soon, thousands. Cade still didn't know. Mason still didn't know. But the world had already begun watching, and nothing about this moment was ever going to be hidden again. Zola's body twitched involuntarily. A thin strand of blood crept down her temple. Her backpack had spilled open beside her books scattered, a pencil rolling slowly toward Mason's shoe. The image was so violently unfair, so brutally symbolic, that even the bystanders felt something crack inside them. Still, no one dared step in. The wolves turned as if to leave, but the air suddenly shifted. A scream, raw, sharp, full of terror, cut through the field. "Zola!" The camera capturing the live stream shook violently as the person holding it whipped around. Footsteps thundered across the pavement, growing louder, faster, angrier. Cade turned toward the sound. "Who the hell?" Then he froze. A figure sprinted across the field like a bullet fired from pure rage braids, whipping behind her, fists clenched, eyes locked on the crumpled body on the ground. The phone, capturing everything, zoomed shakily toward her face, catching a chilling detail. The expression of someone who had just realized the person they loved most in the world had been attacked. Someone who wasn't going to let it slide. Someone dangerous. The live stream comments erupted. "That's her sister, run. 1005. Who is she? Oh, they are done." Cade stepped back for the first time, instinctively sensing that the balance of power had shifted. The backfield no longer felt quiet. It felt like the opening second of a storm about to rip everything apart. And the students recording it could feel the temperature drop, because the person running toward them was not just any girl. She was something else. Entirely. As Zola lay unconscious on the ground, the camera captured her sister's voice broken, furious, trembling as she screamed her name again. The live stream shook harder. Someone whispered, "Oh no, that's Zaria." And Zaria was the one person Cade should never, ever have messed with. Zaria hit the pavement before anyone could process what they were seeing. She didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, didn't even greet the students. She shoved aside. Her entire being was locked onto the limp body lying near the back exit of the arts building. The late afternoon light stretched her shadow long across the concrete as she dropped to her knees beside Zola. "Zola! Hey, look at me! Zola!" Her voice cracked, a mixture of terror and fury, the kind that froze the entire crowd. She lifted her sister gently, one arm sliding beneath her head, the other bracing her shoulders. Zola's body felt terrifyingly loose, like the strength had been drained out of her bones. A streak of blood ran down her cheek. Her eyes didn't open. Around them, students stood in a wide, silent circle. Some were breathing hard, still shaken from the brutality they had witnessed minutes earlier. Others kept recording, their screens glowing like little windows into a nightmare unfolding live. "Someone call an ambulance!" Zaria shouted. "Now!" The urgency in her voice finally snapped a few kids out of their paralysis. A girl near the front fumbled for her phone. Others backed away, whispering urgently. Behind Zaria, Cade crossed his arms and watched with a kind of sick amusement. Mason still gripped the baseball bat, though now his fingers trembled slightly. The other wolves lingered behind them, unsure whether to stand tall or run. Zaria slowly stood, her breaths sharp and uneven. For a moment, she looked only at her sister, her face tightening with grief. Then she turned. Her eyes locked on Cade first, then on Mason, then on the bat still warm in his hand. The shift in her expression was immediate. The sorrow twisted into something harder, heavier, deadlier. Cade smirked, pretending to stretch his shoulders. "Before you start screaming at us, maybe teach your sister not to start fights she can't finish." Zaria froze. "What did you just say?" Cade lifted his chin. "She swung first. We defended ourselves. You people always—" "Finish that sentence," Zaria said, her voice trembling with a warning so cold it could slice through steel. But Cade didn't. Not because he understood the danger. Cade rarely understood anything outside his own privilege, but because Malik shoved through the crowd at that moment. Malik was Zaria's closest friend since childhood. One of the few people who knew the truth about her training, the early mornings, the bruised knuckles, the trophies hidden in her closet. He had watched everything from a distance and ran the moment he heard someone scream Zola's name. "Zaria, don't stop," Malik panted as he reached her side. "He's baiting you. He wants you to snap so they can blame you." Don't give them that. Zarya barely heard him. Her breathing was heavy but controlled, the way a fighter steadies before a strike. She didn't take her eyes off Cade. Tell them what you did, she said slowly. Tell them why my sister is unconscious on the ground. Cade shrugged. I told you. She attacked us first. In fact, your little friend here can back me up. He jutted his chin toward Mason. Mason swallowed, forcing confidence into his voice. Yeah. She came at us. I defended myself. He tightened his grip on the bat as if it were a shield, but everyone noticed the lie. His voice cracked, his posture folded. His eyes kept drifting toward the live stream phone that had somehow gotten closer. Zarya took one step toward them, just one. But the entire crowd reacted gasps, shifting feet, hushed whispers. They felt it. They felt her power before she even spoke. Cade didn't back away. He leaned forward instead. What? You're gonna hit me? Go ahead. I dare you. Then we'll have both of you expelled. Malik held out an arm in front of her. Zarya, stop. Don't. Please. They want this. But Cade wasn't done. He stepped closer to Malik. Move, Malik. This is between me and the fighter girl. Zarya's eyes narrowed. Malik kept his arm out, refusing to let her step forward. Back off, Malik warned Cade. Cade smirked. Or what? You gonna cry like your little FR? Malik didn't even get a chance to defend himself. Cade shoved him. Hard. Too hard. Malik flew backward, striking the corner of the brick wall with a sickening thud. His head snapped back. His body crumpled down the side of the wall, landing in a heap on the concrete. The crowd erupted. Oh my God! He pushed him! Someone help him! Is he bleeding? Zarya spun around and dropped beside Malik. Blood was already trickling from the back of his head. She pressed her hand against the wound, panic surging in her chest. Malik, hey, stay with me, she pleaded. His eyelids fluttered. Zarya, don't fight them. That's what they want. She swallowed hard. Her hands trembled. Then she stood up. Slowly, deliberately, fully. The pain in her face evaporated. The panic drained away. Something else took its place, a calm so cold it terrified everyone watching. Her gaze lifted, and when her eyes met Cade's again, they weren't the eyes of a grieving sister. They weren't even the eyes of a student. They were the eyes of a trained fighter on the edge of controlled violence. Students recording the scene zoomed in instinctively, capturing the transformation in chilling clarity. The live stream chat exploded. Holy her eyes! Cade is down. Why is no one stopping this? This just turned into a movie. Cade's smile faltered. Just a little. Just enough for those closest to him to step backward. Mason lowered the bat an inch. His knuckles whitened. No one spoke. No one breathed. Zarya finally said, voice low and razor-sharp, "You hurt my sister. You hurt my friend. And then you lied about it." She took a single step forward. Phones rose higher. Students leaned in. Her next inhale was deep, steady, lethal. And in that instant, everyone understood. The real story hadn't even started yet. Zarya's eyes, once filled with grief, hardened into pure steel, the kind of look that precedes irreversible consequences. And every camera was capturing that look seconds before everything spiraled even further. The backfield of Westbrook High had transformed into a chaotic triage zone. Zola now lay stretched across a long wooden bench near the wall of the arts building, her head propped on someone's jacket, her breathing shallow and uneven. A dark bruise had begun to bloom along her cheekbone, and the blood drying at her temple made her look even younger, even more fragile. Students circled the bench in tight clusters, whispering, recording, panicking, no one certain who was actually in charge. That uncertainty ended the moment Officer Briggs arrived. His boots struck the pavement in heavy, authoritative thuds, each one announcing the arrival of a man who never questioned his own judgment, even when it was wrong. Briggs was known for two things: a short temper and a long history of siding with the varsity Wolves. Many students whispered that he treated the Wolves like nephews instead of rule breakers. Today, That rumor was about to be proven painfully true. "What's going on here?" Briggs barked, sweeping his gaze across the crowd. Several students pointed toward Zola on the bench. Others pointed at Mason's bat. A few shoved their phones toward him, screens still glowing with video evidence. But Briggs didn't look at a single one. His eyes locked immediately onto Cade, standing tall, arms crossed, smirking like he'd been waiting for his backup to arrive. Briggs marched straight to him. "Cade, you all right? Anyone hurt you?" Cade put on a pained expression so theatrical it almost bordered parody. "Officer Briggs, thank God you're here. She," he pointed at Zarya, "attacked us, and her sister tried to start a fight. We were defending ourselves." It was a lie so blatant the crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. "What? That's not what happened. Look at the video." But Briggs raised a hand, silencing them. "I don't want noise. I want cooperation." Zarya stepped forward, voice steady but edged with unmistakable fury. "Officer Briggs, my sister is unconscious because they hit her with a bat. I want you to look at the recordings. They've been live streaming." "I don't need a lecture," Briggs snapped. "What I see is a violent situation caused by students who don't understand boundaries. And from where I'm standing, you," he pointed directly at Zarya, "are the primary aggressor." Zarya blinked once, her expression numb with disbelief. "Aggressor? I haven't touched anyone except my unconscious sister." Briggs ignored her. "Turn around. Hands behind your back. You're being detained for threatening 2 male students." The words hung in the air like poison. The crowd broke into frantic shouts. "What? She didn't do anything." "Check the videos." "Are you serious?" But Briggs didn't budge. His jaw tightened as he reached for his handcuffs. Zarya stepped between him and Zola, planting her feet firmly. "You're not putting your hands on me while my sister is like this. Watch the video. Look at the evidence." "Why aren't you even asking the witnesses?" Cade chimed in quickly, sensing opportunity. "Officer, she's trying to get aggressive again. She charged at us earlier." "That's a lie," Zarya shot back, voice sharp and cold. Briggs raised his voice. "Enough. Step aside, or I will escalate this." Zarya didn't move, not an inch. Her stance, shoulders squared, chin lifted, tension coiled through every muscle, sent a ripple through the crowd. She wasn't threatening. She wasn't posturing. She was protecting, and everyone could see it. Everyone except Briggs, who refused to acknowledge anything that didn't align with his predetermined storyline. Principal Hawkins arrived then, breathless, adjusting his tie as he pushed through the students. His eyes darted to Cade, first always to Cade, and only then to Zola on the bench. "Officer Briggs," Hawkins said quickly, "I assume you're handling the situation?" Briggs nodded. "Yes, Zarya will be detained for provoking violence. Cade and Mason are victims in this incident." The crowd erupted again, this time louder, angrier, desperate. But Hawkins didn't even flinch. He leaned in closer to Briggs, lowering his voice to a whisper meant for only them, except it wasn't. A few students at the front, those holding their phones, heard every word. "Handle this carefully," Hawkins murmured. "They're varsity wolves. We don't want trouble with their parents. Keep things quiet and light for them. Understood?" Briggs nodded without hesitation, and with that single, whispered exchange, the truth about Westbrook High cracked open like a fault line, clear, undeniable, and rotten. The school protected the varsity wolves, no matter the cost. Zarya heard it. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she just saw the way Hawkins didn't spare Zola more than a passing glance. What she did hear, with complete clarity, was Cade whispering to Mason, "Told you, they'll never believe them." That was the moment something inside Zarya finally snapped, not into chaos, but into a terrifying stillness. She raised her voice, calm and cutting. "You're detaining the wrong person. My sister is unconscious because they hit her. Mason still has the weapon. And you don't even want to see the footage?" "I said turn around," Briggs repeated, stepping forward. "And I said, no," Zarya replied, her voice icy enough to silence the entire field. For a moment, no one moved. The world hung, suspended on the edge of whatever was about to happen next. Zarya positioned herself between Briggs and the bench, physically shielding Zola with her own body. In that stance, she looked less like a student and more like a warrior taking her place on the front line. Her fists weren't raised. Her muscles weren't tense. It was her presence unshakable, commanding, forged from pain that froze everyone in place. The live streamers zoomed in instinctively. They knew this was the moment the entire story pivoted. Hawkins wiped sweat from his brow. "Officer Briggs, remove her." Briggs took one more step, and then something pierced the air. A sound. Sharp, piercing, echoing through the courtyard, loud enough to cut through every shout, every whisper, every heartbeat. Students turned. Phones whipped toward the direction of the noise. Zarya's head snapped up. Even Briggs stopped short. Zarya stood planted like a shield between her unconscious sister and an officer ready to cuff her, eyes blazing with a fury no authority could smother. But then an unexpected sound swept across the courtyard, forcing everyone to stop in their tracks. The sound that froze the courtyard wasn't a siren, or a shout, or the heavy stomp of another authority figure. It was a soft, broken gasp. A small, trembling inhale that sliced through the chaos because it came from Zola. Heads snapped toward the bench where she lay. Zarya spun around so fast she nearly slipped. Students closest to the scene pushed forward, phones raised higher. The circle tightened as confusion turned into shock. Zola's fingers twitched first. Then her eyelids fluttered like they were weighed down by bricks. Her throat constricted around another gasp, this one sharper, pained like her body was fighting its way back from darkness. "Zola?" Zarya whispered, kneeling beside her instantly. Hey, look at me. I'm here." Zola's breathing was shallow, ragged. Her gaze drifted unfocused across the sky before finally locking onto her sister's face. Recognition flickered, then fear. Terrible, shaking fear. She tried to sit up, but pain seized her body, sending her collapsing into Zarya's arms. The crowd let out a collective gasp. "It's okay," Zarya soothed, brushing braids away from Zola's forehead. "You're okay. Stay still. Help is coming." But Zola wasn't looking at her anymore. Her eyes shifted past Zarya's shoulder toward Cade. Cade, who was still standing with the same cocky smirk, hands in pockets, as if he hadn't just assaulted someone into unconsciousness. Zola reached up with trembling fingers and clutched Zarya's shirt. Her voice barely existed, only a rasp, but she forced her arm to extend. Her shaking hand lifted, and pointed directly at Cade. The courtyard erupted in whispers. "She's pointing at him. Oh my God," she remembers. "She's terrified of him." Zarya turned slowly, her eyes meeting Cade's across the courtyard. He froze for a fraction of a second, just long enough for guilt to flicker behind his bravado. But then the mask snapped back into place, and he spoke, loud enough for the crowd to hear, quiet enough to be threatening, clear enough to be unmistakably evil. "Say anything," he hissed, taking a single step forward. "And you're dead." A collective gasp punched through the crowd. Even Mason flinched. Zola's body convulsed with fear. She tried to shrink into her sister's chest, muffling a sob. Zarya's head snapped toward Cade so violently, a few students instinctively stepped back. Her expression was surgical precision fury. Her jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped beneath her cheek. The air around her felt colder. But before she could speak, something happened. Something Cade didn't anticipate. Because while he grinned and strutted like he owned the entire courtyard, someone had been recording him up close. A student, a freshman with trembling hands but a brave heart, stepped forward, holding up his phone. "Smile for the live stream, Cade." The entire courtyard seemed to inhale at once. The freshman angled the phone so the screen faced outward, revealing that the live stream had captured everything. Zola waking, her pointing, Cade's threat, every syllable. A wave of comments flooded the screen in real time. "He just threatened her. This dude is done. Clip it. Save it. Send this to the news right now. For justice for Zola." Cade's smirk vanished. His face drained of color as he realized he hadn't just threatened a girl, he had threatened her on camera, in front of an audience of thousands. Officer Briggs finally reacted, but not in the way anyone expected. He lunged toward the freshman. "Turn that off! Give me the phone now!" "No!" the kid yelled, backing up. "It's live! You can't delete it! Everyone's already seen it!" Phones across the courtyard lifted higher, recording Briggs too now. The moment spun out of his control. Zarya stood slowly, positioning herself between Briggs and the freshman. Her posture was composed but lethal, a fighter's readiness wrapped in stillness. "You're going after the wrong people again," she said quietly. Briggs hesitated because he had finally seen what everyone else had seen. The live stream. It was still running, still tracking every detail, still broadcasting to a growing audience. The color drained from his face. His jaw slackened. For the first time since his arrival, Officer Briggs looked uncertain, like he understood, with dawning horror, that his version of events was collapsing. Someone behind him shouted, "We all saw what happened." Another voice, "You can't cover this up." And a third, "The whole city is watching the stream." Briggs swallowed hard. Sweat beaded at his temples. He glanced at Principal Hawkins, as if silently begging for direction. But Hawkins, too, was frozen. He had heard Cade's threat. He had seen the live stream pointed directly at the boy he'd tried to protect. Everything he'd tried to hide was now public. Zarya knelt beside her sister once more, gently lifting Zola's head and cradling it against her lap. Her voice softened instantly, transforming from steel to comfort. "Zola, you're safe. I promise you," she whispered. But Zola's eyes darted fearfully toward Cade again. She tried to speak a strangled sound, half pain, half terror, but no words came out. Zarya brushed her thumb across Zola's cheek. "Don't talk. Just breathe." Then she rose. Slowly, purposefully. She turned to face Cade. "You threatened her while she was unconscious," she said, her voice low enough to shake the air, "and you thought no one would hear." Cade tried to laugh it off. "It was a joke." "No," Zarya said, taking a step toward him. "It wasn't." Students parted around her like water around a stone, instinctively, unconsciously, awestruck by the force she projected. Mason shrank behind Cade. The wolves looked uneasy, and Cade's breathing grew shallow. Because Zarya wasn't yelling, she wasn't swinging, she wasn't even glaring. She was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes right before something irreversible happens. The freshman angled the phone even closer, capturing Cade's face in high definition. He tried to turn away, but there was nowhere to go. The whole courtyard was a cage of eyes and phones. Then someone shouted from the back, "It's already on Twitter." Another, "The news outlets are picking it up." And another, "This just went viral." Officer Briggs's face went ashen. The system he'd tried to protect, the wolves, the lies, the cover-ups, had just been torn open in front of the entire school. Officer Briggs stared at the live stream screen at Cade's threat, looping again and again as the blood drained from his face. He knew the truth was no longer containable. But that video was only the first spark of the wildfire that was about to consume everything. The hallway outside the nurse's office smelled faintly of bleach and fear, one of those narrow school corridors where sound echoed too easily, and secrets couldn't hide for long. Students who had followed the chaos from the courtyard crowded both ends of the hallway, whispering frantically, their phones ready, their nerves crackling with anticipation. Zarya stood alone in the center, her back straight, her posture calm but deceptively dangerous. She had just carried Zola inside to the nurse, ensuring her sister was breathing steadily before stepping back out and immediately running into Cade and Mason waiting for her. They weren't alone. Several varsity wolves flanked them, puffing out their chests like they owned the school. Their eyes held no remorse, only arrogance, entitlement, and the ugly exhilaration of boys who believed they were untouchable. Cade stepped forward first. Well, warrior girl finally shows her face," he taunted. "How many fights have you and your sister started today? Must be genetic." A ripple of disgust moved through the hallway. Zarya said nothing. yet her silence felt sharper than any insult. Cade continued, louder now, making sure his audience heard every poisonous word. You know, I've been thinking, your sister wouldn't have gotten hit if she didn't act like she owned the place. You people always think the rules don't apply to you. That line did it. A quiet gasp escaped a girl near the lockers. Someone muttered, "That's racist." Another whispered, "He's digging his own grave." Zarya lifted her chin. "Say you people one more time," she said softly. Cade smirked. "Why? Gonna hit me? Prove everyone right? Show us all that temper?" Before he could finish, Mason stepped forward and slammed his shoulder into Zarya's hard, a deliberate hit, a challenge, a move meant to make her snap so he could claim self-defense. Zarya barely budged. Her body absorbed the blow like it was nothing, years of MMA conditioning evident in the way she shifted her weight, feet settling into a stable stance automatically. Her fists did not clench. Her breathing didn't quicken. Her eyes didn't even blink. But everyone saw the restraint. Everyone felt the tension. Everyone recognized the moment she could have unleashed hell and chose not to. Mason laughed, though the sound cracked at the edges. "Come on, tough girl. Hit me. Hit me so Briggs can take you away like he should have hours ago." Zarya looked at him with a calmness so unnerving it made one of the wolves take a step back. "I don't hit people because they want attention," she replied, softly, "only when I have to." Cade scoffed. "Hear that? She thinks she's some kind of hero." Zarya's eyes sharpened. "No, I think I'm someone who's tired of cowards." The hallway erupted in muffled reactions. Cade's face turned red. "You think we're scared of you? The only reason you're acting tough is because your little sister woke up and pointed fingers. She's lying, by the way, but lying comes easy to girls like her." Another wave of silence crashed over the hallway. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. No one dared interrupt. Zarya inhaled once, deeply, as if steadying herself against the urge to break him in half. Then she said, "If you ever speak about my sister like that again, I won't hold back." Mason scoffed. "Oh yeah? What are you gonna do?" Behind the crowd, unnoticed, Mrs. Rose stood leaning against the wall, phone angled down. Screen dimmed. She had followed the group inside after witnessing Briggs's mishandling of the situation. She knew something worse was coming, and she knew the school would try to bury it. So she hit record, quietly, secretly. Her microphone caught everything. Meanwhile, Cade doubled down, stepping close enough for Zarya to smell the cheap energy drink on his breath. "You want to blame us for your sister's stupidity," he hissed. "She should have known her place. She should have walked away. But no, you two always have to make everything about race. Always looking for sympathy. Always ready to cry victim." A tremor ran through the hallway. Zarya took a slow step forward, but her voice stayed level. "You knocked her unconscious with a weapon. That's not race. That's violence. And now you're hiding behind lies because you're terrified someone finally caught you." Cade's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered to the phones recording behind her. Mason shifted uneasily, the handle of a baseball bat hidden behind his leg. He had snuck it inside, still paranoid, still gripping it like a security blanket. Then his insecurity turned to anger. He lifted the bat, subtle at first, then higher. "Back up!" he snarled. "I'm not letting you get in my face again." Students gasped. Phones zoomed in. Some stepped back, bumping into lockers. The tension snapped like a pulled wire. Zarya didn't flinch. She didn't retreat. She didn't even raise her hands. Instead, she looked directly at the bat, at the same weapon that had nearly killed her sister, and then slowly raised her eyes to Mason's trembling ones. "Put it down," she said quietly. "This is your last warning." Her tone wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't dramatic. It was final, and that terrified Mason far more than any shouting could have. His hand shook. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He tried to hide it by tightening his grip, but the trembling only grew worse. Cade noticed. The wolves noticed. The entire hallway noticed. "What are you waiting for?" Cade hissed. "She's bluffing. Do something." But something in Mason's brain finally registered the danger. Not from the cameras, not from the crowd. From her. Zarya wasn't bluffing. She wasn't scared. She wasn't backing down. She was waiting. She was giving him one final chance to choose correctly. Behind the crowd, Mrs. Rowe zoomed her phone in closer. Every word, every gesture, every threat, every micro-expression. She caught all of it, because she knew better than any student that the moment the bat moved, the story would explode. Mason swallowed hard. Sweat dropped from his chin. He lifted the bat higher anyway. Students screamed. Someone shouted, "No, stop!" Another yelled, "Mason, don't!" But it was already too late. As Mason raised the bat, trembling with fear and arrogance, Zarya's voice sliced through the panic. Calm, cold, unshakable. "Put it down. This is your final warning." But Mason chose wrong, and that was the moment the story truly detonated. The hallway outside the baseball field had never felt so narrow, so suffocating. The lockers lining both sides created a metallic canyon that amplified every breath, every shuffle, every whispered fear. Students pressed themselves against the walls, phones raised high, their screens capturing the moment that would soon define the entire school. Mason stood at the center of it all, bat raised, sweat dripping from his brow, panic and arrogance battling behind his eyes. The bat shook in his grip, but he tried to mask it with a sneer. "You think I won't swing?" he barked. Zarya didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even lift her hands. "You already did," she said softly. "On my sister." That sentence landed harder than any punch. A hush swept the crowd, heavy and electric. Zarya's stance wasn't aggressive, feet shoulder-width apart, posture relaxed, but anyone who knew combat recognized it instantly. She was balanced, centered, ready. Mason couldn't admit fear in front of Cade, so he did the only thing cowardice ever teaches. He attacked first. With a guttural yell, he charged forward, bat swinging downward in a sloppy, uncontrolled arc, meant to intimidate more than to land with technique. But fear made him fast. Fear made him reckless. Students screamed. Someone yelled, "Zarya, look out!" Another shouted, "He's trying to hit her again!" But Zarya had already read his movement before his feet lifted from the floor. The instant the bat came down, she shifted, a slightest turn of her torso, a precise pivot of her foot, a breath drawn and released in perfect timing. The bat sliced through empty air where her head had been half a second earlier. The force of Mason's missed swing pulled him off balance, his weight leaning forward, his guard wide open. And that was all she needed. Without hesitation, without wasted motion, without anger clouding her technique, Zarya moved, her right leg lifted in a blur, hips rotating with flawless form. Then, crack. Her heel collided with Mason's jaw in a perfect roundhouse kick. The sound echoed down the metal hallway like a gunshot. Mason's body flew sideways, actually lifted off the ground, before crashing into the row of lockers with a metallic explosion. The impact dented the locker door inward, creating a crater the size of his shoulder. He slid down the dented metal, eyes unfocused, mouth open in a silent gasp. The bat clattered to the floor and rolled away. For one breathless second, the entire hallway went dead silent. Then, "Oh my God!" She knocked him out. Bro, did you get that on camera? That was a pro move. Mason got sent to another dimension. The hallway erupted. Some students screamed. Some cheered. Some just stared in stunned, terrified awe. Cade stumbled backward 3 steps, his face draining of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. His bravado evaporated, replaced by the realization that the girl he had been mocking was something far beyond what he understood. Zarya lowered her leg with controlled precision, exhaling slowly. Her breathing remained steady, calm. Even like this wasn't the first time she had neutralized someone twice her size with a single strike. It wasn't brutality. It was skill. It was discipline. It was justice delivered with surgical precision. But Cade didn't see technique. He saw a threat. And threats, in Cade's world, had to be eliminated or discredited. "Officer Briggs! Officer!" Cade shouted, voice cracking. As if summoned from the shadows, Briggs barreled into the hallway moments later, face flushed with anger, not directed at Mason, who lay motionless against the locker but at Zarya. "What did you do?" he roared, storming toward her. Students shouted over him. She defended herself. Mason attacked first. He swung a bat. "We have it on camera, look." But Briggs didn't look, didn't listen, didn't even slow down. Instead, he pointed a shaking finger at Zarya. "You turn around! You are under arrest for assault." Zarya stepped protectively in front of the bat that Mason had dropped, as if shielding it from being used against her narrative. Her eyes were steady, even as the hallway shook with panic. "I defended myself from someone who attacked me with a deadly weapon," she said, voice razor-sharp. "And you know it." Briggs turned red. "You assaulted a student." A girl from the back shouted, "He assaulted her first." Another yelled, "We have 4 angles of it. Check the videos!" Briggs snapped. "I don't need videos." Zarya's head tilted. "Of course you don't," she said coldly. "Because videos show the truth." Gasps spread like wildfire. Briggs took a step forward, one hand moving toward his cuffs. Cade regained some confidence and shouted, "Arrest her. She's dangerous. She's crazy." Zarya didn't react to Cade. She didn't even glance at Mason, who was still groaning against the lockers. Her focus locked entirely on Briggs, as if weighing every possible outcome. Then she spoke, not loudly, not theatrically, but with a clarity that cut through the noise like a scalpel. "My sister was beaten unconscious," she said. "My friend was shoved into a wall. And now you want to arrest me for defending myself?" Briggs hesitated. Only for a moment, but hesitation was enough to shift the energy of the entire hallway. Zarya took one step forward, past the dropped bat, past the dented locker, past the paralyzed wolves. She turned in a slow circle, making sure every camera caught her words. Then she delivered her declaration. "You hurt my sister, and I will bring every single person involved into the light." Students stared, breathless. Phones recorded every syllable. Cade's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape route. Mason finally passed out. The hallway was a powder keg, and Zarya had just lit the fuse, standing amid the chaos between the trembling wolves, the furious officer, the screaming crowd, and the unblinking phone cameras. Zarya repeated her vow with chilling calm. "You hurt my sister, and I will expose every one of you." But the people involved weren't just 2 bullies, and Zarya was about to confront a system designed to protect them. Acts 1. Principal Hawkins' office smelled of old carpet, stale coffee, and bureaucracy, the kind of place where truth didn't just get buried, it got edited first. The blinds were drawn tight, slashing the room into dim stripes of artificial light. The door was shut firmly behind Zarya the second she entered, locking her away from the crowd of students who had been chanting for justice just moments before. Inside, the power imbalance was suffocating. Principal Hawkins sat behind his oversized oak desk, hands folded, as if preparing for a polite conversation. Officer Briggs hovered near the wall, arms crossed, face already hardened with bias. Cade sat smugly in one of the leather chairs, an ice pack resting dramatically on his cheek. Mason, who had woken up just enough to limp inside, sat beside him, playing the wounded victim, despite still smelling faintly of fear. Mrs. Rose stood silently near the back wall, eyes watchful. Zarya remained standing. Hawkins gestured toward the empty seat across from his desk. "Miss Zarya, please sit. We need to address this situation calmly and objectively." Her jaw tightened, but after a beat, she lowered herself into the chair more out of strategy than obedience. She didn't trust the room, but she understood the battlefield. Hawkins cleared his throat. "Now, I understand emotions are running high, but we must approach this from all sides. According to Cade and Mason, you initiated physical aggression in the hallway." Zarya blinked. "That's a lie." Cade leaned back, wincing dramatically as if the movement hurt. She kicked Mason into a locker, principal, hard, almost knocked his tooth out. Zaria turned her gaze toward Cade. He swung a bat at my head. Cade raised his hands innocently. It wasn't like that. You were threatening us before he even lifted the bat. We were terrified for our safety. Mason nodded weakly. Yeah, we thought she was going to kill us. Zaria's laugh was sharp, humorless. Is that the story you're sticking with? Briggs stepped forward. Watch your tone. I heard you threaten them earlier. You said, I won't hold back. That sounds pretty aggressive to me. Zaria turned to him slowly. I said that after he shoved Malik into a wall. After they threatened my sister. She leaned forward, voice slicing through the room. Why do you keep skipping over the parts where they attacked first? Hawkins lifted his hands, pretending to calm things. Let's not get confrontational. I want to understand your perspective, Zaria. But when you keep interrupting, I'm interrupting because you're twisting my words, she snapped. Hawkins stiffened. Miss Zaria, I will not tolerate disrespect, and I will not tolerate being framed, she countered. My sister nearly died today. For a split second, something flickered in Hawkins' eyes. Guilt, maybe, but he smothered it quickly. Cade seized the moment. Look, Principal, she's always been like this. Dramatic. Acting like the world is against her. She started screaming in the hallway before anything even happened. Mason nodded, adding, Yeah, she charged at us first. Ask anyone. Funny, Zaria said coldly, because the videos say otherwise. Briggs jumped in defensively. Videos can be edited. Zaria's stare sharpened into ice. Live streams can't. A long pause stretched across the room. Cade shifted uncomfortably. Hawkins cleared his throat again, this time more forcefully, as if trying to regain control of the narrative. Well, he said slowly, we still need to consider intent. Even if Mason lifted the bat, we have to determine whether you escalated the situation beyond reason. Zaria leaned back in her chair, exhaling incredulously. I escalated? They beat my sister unconscious. They threatened her life after she woke up. And now you're calling me the escalation? Briggs took a step closer, hand drifting near his handcuffs. You assaulted a student, he growled. That's the bottom line. No, she said, voice steel-coated. I defended myself, but Hawkins waved dismissively. Regardless, we have 2 injured boys and 1 very frightened student body. Your behavior is concerning. Mrs. Rowe finally spoke up. Principal Hawkins, with all due respect, you're ignoring critical details. Hawkins shot her a warning look. Mrs. Rowe, this is not your meeting. Her voice stayed calm, but carried a dangerous undercurrent. I was present. I heard everything. Cade scoffed. Oh, please, teachers always take their side. But Mrs. Rowe wasn't rattled. She pulled something from her pocket. A phone, unlocked, already cued to an audio recording. I recorded the confrontation in the hallway, she said. All of it. Every insult, every threat, every lie. Briggs stiffened. Mason's eyes widened. Cade's smug grin faltered. Mrs. Rowe tapped play. The room filled with echoes of their own voices, raw, unfiltered, undeniable. Mason's shove, Cade's slurs, the racist taunts, the threats. Even Mason raising the bat before Zaria moved. And then, the most damning moment, Cade's voice, crystal clear. You people should just shut up before I finish what we started. Hawkins' face drained of color. His hands froze mid-air. His throat bobbed hard. The blood left his cheeks in a slow, visible wave. That one sentence, those hateful words, shattered every false narrative Cade had constructed. Cade tried to speak, but the sound died in his throat. Mason slumped deeper into his chair. Briggs' jaw clenched, as if someone had punched him. Zaria didn't move. She simply stared at Hawkins, watching the truth ripple through him like a cold wave. Hawkins finally reached out, fumbling to pause the recording, his fingers shaking. Turn that off, he said weakly. Mrs. Rowe didn't budge. It's saved to the cloud, she said softly. It can't be deleted. Silence swallowed the room whole. Zaria spoke first. Now do you understand? She said quietly. Why I refused to let you arrest me instead of them." Hawkins looked at her, eyes hollow, chest rising and falling with a strained breath. His facade of authority had cracked, exposed, fragile, desperate. But he wasn't defeated. Not yet. His voice returned as a pathetic whisper of power. "This isn't over." When the recording reached the part where Cade hissed, "You people should shut up before I finish you," Hawkins' face turned ghost white because the lie he tried to protect had just collapsed in front of everyone. But Hawkins didn't surrender. He was about to do something even worse. The school board conference room was built for discipline, not justice. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow over the long mahogany table at the center. Rows of framed championship photos lined the walls. Football, baseball, wrestling, every trophy conveniently tied to one name, printed repeatedly across the plaques: Cade Miller, the Varsity Wolves' golden boy. And today, those photos watched over the meeting like silent accomplices. Zaria entered the room with Mrs. Rowe at her side. Officer Briggs and Principal Hawkins were already seated. 3 school board members in suits sat stiffly along one side of the table, while Cade's father, Thomas Miller, corporate donor, wealthy contractor, and self-appointed king of the district, claimed a seat at the head. He didn't wait for Zaria to sit. "So," Thomas said, voice smooth but venom-coated, "shall we begin addressing the threat to our school?" Mrs. Rowe stiffened. Zaria inhaled slowly, planting herself in a chair without asking permission. She would not stand before these men like a defendant. Not today. Principal Hawkins cleared his throat, flipping open a folder thick with papers he had prepared too quickly, papers that already smelled like lies. "As acting principal," he began, "it is my duty to report an incident involving 2 students, Cade Miller and Mason Harlow, who were violently attacked by—" "That's a lie," Zaria snapped before he could finish. Hawkins lifted a hand theatrically. "Miss Zaria, you will have your turn. But first, the truth must be documented." Mrs. Rowe muttered under her breath. "Truth isn't what you brought," Hawkins continued, undeterred. "The assault began when Zola Zaria's sister initiated aggression on school property. A confrontation ensued. Zaria escalated the conflict significantly, causing injuries to 2 students. Board members nodded mechanically, as if already briefed before they walked in. Zaria leaned forward. "Zola was unconscious, beaten with a bat." "How is that initiating aggression?" Briggs interjected. "We have testimony that she swung first. Testimony from Cade and Mason." Mrs. Rowe shot back. "Both proven liars." Thomas Miller slammed a hand on the table. "Watch your tone, Miss whatever your name is." Mrs. Rowe didn't flinch. "My name is the teacher who saved your son from prison today by stepping in before Zaria broke more than his pride." A few teachers gasped from the back row. Thomas glared, face reddening. Hawkins forced a brittle smile. "Let's remain professional. The fact is, Zaria used excessive force. She defended herself," Mrs. Rowe corrected, "from a weapon. And therefore we propose immediate disciplinary action." Hawkins finished loudly, drowning her out. "Suspension at minimum, possibly expulsion." One board member nodded. "The safety of this school must come first." Another added, "especially with tensions running high." Thomas leaned back, crossing his legs in victory. "I recommend indefinite suspension and a restraining order. We cannot have a violent student terrorizing campus." Zaria's fists tightened under the table. "Terrorizing?" she murmured. "My sister nearly died." "Careful," Briggs warned. "Threatening language won't help your case." Zaria turned her gaze on him. "You didn't watch the videos. Because they destroy your entire narrative." Briggs opened his mouth, but Hawkins cut in quickly. "Officer Briggs is not on trial here. Miss Zaria is." "Mrs.?" Rowe shot to her feet. "This is absurd. There is recorded evidence. Audio and video." But the board didn't flinch. Thomas folded his hands. "The board understands the difficulties students face, but Cade is a valued young man with a bright future. His reputation cannot be jeopardized by stories." "Stories?" Zaria repeated. My sister's blood on the pavement was a story to you? Thomas shrugged. Accidents happen in fights. That wasn't a fight, she snapped. It was an ambush. Hawkins slammed his folder shut. Regardless, we must maintain order. We cannot allow a student with combat training to run wild. Zaria's jaw set. So now you're punishing me for knowing how to defend myself? One board member adjusted his glasses. We must consider public image. The wolves are part of our school identity. And then there it was, the rot beneath the floorboards. The system wasn't broken. It was functioning exactly as designed. Mrs. Rowe's lip curled in disgust. So because Cade's father pays for jerseys and stadium lights, you're willing to protect attempted murder? Thomas smirked. You're exaggerating. Zaria leaned forward, voice low and dangerously calm. You're all protecting criminals, Briggs barked. Watch yourself. But Zaria didn't stop. You watched the school fall apart under your leadership. You watched a girl get beaten unconscious, and instead of helping, you're helping them bury the truth. Hawkins reddened. This meeting is about consequences, not accusations. Mrs. Rowe reached into her bag and placed her phone flat on the table. I have consequences for you, Principal Hawkins. She pressed play. Cade's voice filled the room. You people should shut up before I finish what we started. Mason's snarling threats echoed after. The shove, the taunts, the intent. Board members stiffened. Briggs' eyes darted to the door. Thomas Miller's expression tightened into a mask of fury. Hawkins' face drained completely. That recording, he stammered, is unlawful. It was in a public hallway, Mrs. Rowe said calmly, and it exposes everything you're trying to hide. Hawkins leaned toward a board member, whispering urgently. The man paled. Then he whispered back, audible enough for the room to hear, Don't let that video go public. If it leaks, this school is finished. Zaria's breath hitched. Her fingers curled into fists. She hadn't realized how deep the corruption ran, how many layers were built to protect boys like Cade. The board shifted, suddenly jittery. Thomas Miller hissed, We need damage control. Fast. Hawkins swallowed hard. We cannot allow media attention. Not with budget reviews coming. Not with Cade's scholarship endorsements. Zaria stood. The chair scraped violently against the floor, jolting everyone. She didn't raise her voice, but her words hit like a hammer. You didn't protect my sister. You didn't protect the truth. And now you're not even protecting the students, just your own comfort. Thomas stood as well, face red with anger. You will not talk to us like... But Zaria didn't look at him. She looked at Hawkins, and he looked terrified. Zaria tightened her fists as a board member leaned close to Hawkins and whispered, Don't let the video leak. If it gets out, this whole school collapses. But just when they believed they had buried everything, social media ignited the wildfire. The hallways of Westbrook High buzzed like a beehive struck with a bat, ironically, the same bat that started this entire nightmare. Students crowded every corner, necks craned, eyes glued to glowing phone screens. Even teachers struggling to maintain order couldn't help but notice the chaos spreading through the corridors like wildfire. The live stream from the backfield had gone viral. No one expected it. No one planned it. But once the footage hit the public timeline, the world outside Westbrook High took notice with ferocity. A girl shrieked into her phone, It's at 590,000. A boy shouted from near the lockers, No, wait, 600. It just hit 600,000. Another student yelled, Look at the comments people are tagging news stations. Zaria walked into the hallway with Malik at her side, still reeling from the twisted meeting in the boardroom. Her face held no triumph, no shock, only a grim acceptance. She had known something like this might happen, but she never imagined the world would pick up her sister's pain so quickly. Malik nearly toppled over as students rushed past him, phones waving in the air like urgent flares. Zaria, he said breathlessly, tapping his screen. It's everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook God, even Reddit. Hashtag number Justice for Zola is exploding. A group of freshmen ran past, one yelling, The mayor's office just followed the hashtag. Another shouted, Fox News wants footage. And MSNBC too. Zarya blinked slowly. News outlets? Already? Malik nodded, face pale with shock. Local media just emailed the school's public office. And, he lowered his voice, one reporter DM'd me directly. They want to interview you and Mrs. Rowe. Tonight. Zarya exhaled, steadying herself. I'm not talking to anyone until Zola wakes up. But the world wasn't waiting. Students refreshed the live stream every few seconds, watching the view count climb in real time. Wusha Jowan Jochen Babai Sishirar. Wusha Jowan Jochen Jobai Isi. Pienset, Dziewięćdziesiąt, dziewięćset, Oshem. Oh my God. 600,000. The cheer that erupted shook the entire hallway, but the victory was bittersweet, because the comments weren't just supportive, they were furious. Arrest the boys. This is assault. The school tried to cover this up. Someone call a lawyer. Manas. Number Justice for Zola. Number Exposa Westbrook High. Screens across the hallway played loops of the worst part. Mason lifting the bat. The crack against Zola's skull. Her body dropping like a rag doll. And the world reacted. Girls cried. Boys swore. Teachers paled. But amid the chaos, one device chimed. Officer Briggs' phone. He had just turned the corner, trying to push past the students clogging the hall, when the notification lit his screen. His face turned the color of angry chalk as he read the preview. The security camera footage leaked. Delete everything before reporters see it. His breath hitched. He opened the message fully, hands trembling. It was from an unknown number. Short. Urgent. Panicked. Video camera leaked. Get to storage room. Erase everything now. Briggs' stomach dropped, because the live stream was bad enough, but the security footage, the official, school-owned, time-stamped footage, was catastrophic. He shoved his phone into his pocket, sweat already forming at his hairline. Out of my way, he barked, pushing through several students. One shoved back, yelling, We all saw the video, Briggs! You can't hide this anymore! Briggs didn't answer, because the nightmare was just beginning. On dozens of screens, a new video notification appeared, a new clip, from a new angle, uploaded anonymously. Malik checked it first. His face froze. Zarya, his voice trembled. This isn't the live stream. This is the security feed. Zarya finished quietly, staring over his shoulder. The clip was clearer than any phone video, sharper, perfectly angled toward the back field. It showed everything. Mason creeping behind Zola with the bat lifted, Cade blocking her path, Zola backing up, terrified. Then bam! The blow. Zola collapsing, Cade laughing. No distortions, no shaky hands, no ambiguity. It was undeniable. Within seconds, comments began flooding the reposts. This is the school's own camera. They knew. How many staff members helped cover this up? Arrest Briggs? And the principal too. This is a hate crime. Students gasped. Some screamed. A few even dropped their phones. Zarya's lips parted slightly, shock mingling with fury. They leaked the school footage, she whispered. Someone inside helped us. Malik swallowed hard. Or someone couldn't handle the guilt anymore. Zarya scanned the hallway. Phones pointed everywhere. Students cried, argued, shouted. The school was no longer a school. It was a courtroom, a battlefield, an evidence archive. Briggs pushed forward, yelling, Turn those off! All of you! Phones away now! But no one listened. They didn't have to. On one screen, a girl held up. The video hit 700,000 views. Another boy shouted, 1,000,000 next watch. Across the hall, Cade appeared face pale, sweat soaking his collar. He shoved past a freshman and grabbed another boy's phone. Delete that! Give it to me! He shouted, voice cracking. The boy yanked it back. Get away from me, psycho! Students closed ranks, forming a wall between Cade and the crowd. For the first time, he looked small, weak, cornered. Zarya didn't move toward him. She didn't need to. The world was already coming for him. But Cade wasn't the only one collapsing, because Briggs' phone buzzed again. 3 words this time. Deal with it. His throat tightened. He knew exactly what deal with it meant. Destroy the evidence. Destroy the narrative. Destroy Zarya. But it was too late. The hallway lit up with even more notifications as local news stations began posting. Breaking. Video shows student beaten unconscious at Westbrook High. Possible cover-up under investigation. Number Justice for Zola. Trending nationwide. Briggs felt the ground shift beneath him. He had lost control, and everyone saw it. Briggs stared at the message, ordering him to delete the evidence, just as the leaked security footage exploded across every phone in the hallway. His face drained of color. The truth was out, and nothing could bury it now. But once something hits the internet, it can never be erased. The parking lot outside Westbrook High looked like a crime scene wrapped in chaos. Cars idled crookedly in half-marked spaces as anxious parents swarmed the pavement, phones in hand, faces pale from the viral videos they had just seen. Some shouted into their screens, others demanded answers from staff who had none to give. Rumors ricocheted off every surface. In the middle of the chaos stood Zarya, Malik beside her, Mrs. Rowe hovering close enough to intervene if necessary. They had barely stepped out of the building when Cade stormed across the asphalt, dragging Mason by the sleeve like a drowning man clinging to the nearest body. "You're taking the fall for this," Cade barked, voice cracking with panic. Mason yanked his arm free. "The hell I am." "You hit her. You swung the bat," Cade hissed. "Say it was your idea. Say it was self-defense. Just fix it." Mason shoved him back. "No, Cade. You told me to stop her. You told me to scare her. You said, 'Lower your voice,'" Cade snapped, looking wildly at the parents gathering around them. But Mason was done being useful. "No," he said louder. "Let them hear. Let everyone hear." "You planned the whole thing!" Phones whipped out instantly. "Wait, did he just admit it? Get closer, record it." "Oh, this is getting worse for them." Cade's face drained of color. "Shut up, Mason. You're ruining everything." "You already ruined everything," Mason shouted. "You said she'd back off. You said Zarya was all bark, no bite. But she kicked me into a locker. And now the whole world thinks we're monsters." Cade lunged forward and grabbed Mason by the collar. "You are a monster," he growled. "So, take the blame like one." Mason shoved him so hard, Cade stumbled. They were unraveling loudly, publicly, irreversibly. Parents stared in shock. Students whispered excitedly. Phones recorded everything from every angle. Zarya did not move. She watched them calmly, like she was studying footage of 2 amateur fighters telegraphing every sloppy punch. Malik glanced nervously at her, unsure whether to intervene or stay back. "Zarya," he whispered, "they're falling apart." "No," she said softly. "They're revealing themselves." Cade spun around suddenly, pointing at her like a cornered animal. "This is your fault," he shouted. "You ruined everything." Zarya raised one eyebrow. "I didn't record you hitting my sister." A murmur rippled through the parking lot. Cade's face twisted. "If you hadn't stuck your nose in where it didn't belong." Zarya stepped forward, just one step, and Cade reflexively stumbled backward. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to, because the silence of a trained fighter is louder than any threat. Malik folded his arms, smirking slightly. Funny how brave he was an hour ago. Cade shot him a death glare, but he didn't come closer. He couldn't, not with his lies collapsing around him and Mason turning into a live grenade beside him. Mason pointed at Zarya, shouting to the nearest phone, "She attacked me. She's dangerous." A parent scoffed. "Son, we all saw the video. You swung the bat first," another parent added. "And your friend here laughed, while your victim was unconscious." "Cut the act," Mason sputtered. It wasn't like that." Cade grabbed his arm again. "Stop talking." But Mason was beyond control. "She's not normal," Mason yelled, voice cracking. "She fought like she's trained." A hush fell. Dozens of eyes turned to Zarya. She didn't move, didn't blink. Then a woman's voice broke the silence, sharp, ringing. carrying across the entire lot. That's because she is trained. All heads pivoted. An older man in a work uniform stepped forward, phone still in hand. "I've seen that kick before," he said, pointing at Zarya. "My nephew trains MMA. That roundhouse was professional." Another parent chimed in, "Yeah, my cousin competes amateur. That wasn't a lucky shot." Then, louder than all the rest, a father near the front shouted, "That girl is a professional MMA fighter. Do you kids even realize who you messed with?" The parking lot went silent, utterly silent. Phones froze mid-air. Students stopped breathing. Even the engines from idling cars seemed to quiet. Cade's jaw dropped. Mason's eyes widened to saucers. Malik turned to Zarya with an expression that said, "Well, the secret's out." Zarya didn't deny it. She stood tall, spine straight, eyes level, the composure of someone who had spent years mastering both violence and restraint. For the first time, the entire parking lot saw her not as a victim, not as a sister, not as a student, but as a trained warrior. A fighter who had held back, a fighter who chose control, a fighter who could have destroyed both boys, but didn't. Whispers erupted like sparks. "She's MMA? No wonder she kicked him like that. That explains everything." She didn't attack them. She defended herself the way she was trained. Cade's trembling voice scraped the air. You're a fighter?" Zarya finally spoke. "Yes." The simplicity of the word carried more force than any punch. Cade took 3 full steps back. Mason shook his head numbly, whispering, "We're dead. We are so dead." Zarya didn't approach them. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stood there while the truth settled over the crowd like thunder. Strength, discipline, justice, control. She embodied all of it. The entire parking lot fell completely silent, not because Zarya was dangerous, but because for the first time, everyone understood she wasn't just a victim. She was a professionally trained fighter. And by that evening, her name and her sister's were broadcast across every local news station. The evening news studio glowed in stark blues and reds as the anchor leaned toward the camera, serious and unblinking. Screens behind her displayed still images from the viral videos. Zola, lying unconscious on the ground, Mason holding the bat, Cade laughing. None of it was blurred. The city had seen enough. "This just in," the anchor announced, voice steady but laced with outrage. Disturbing footage from Westbrook High School shows a black teenage girl being struck with a baseball bat by classmates. Multiple angles confirm the attack, raising questions not only about violence on campus, but about a possible administrative cover-up. Her words echoed across living rooms, restaurants, phones, and car radios throughout the city. In the living room of the Porter home, the TV screen was the only source of light. Zarya stood frozen in front of it, arms folded tightly across her chest. Beside her, on the sofa, Zola rested against pillows, wrapped in a soft blanket. Her cheek was bruised, her lip cut, yet her eyes remained alert, glued to the same footage that had already been played millions of times online. Their mother, attorney Helena Porter, paced in front of them with a folder under her arm and fire in her eyes. Helena Porter was known in the city's legal circles for being calm in a courtroom yet lethal when confronting injustice. Tonight, however, she wasn't calm at all. "Look at this," she muttered, stopping only to point at the screen as the news cut to student interviews. "The school allowed this to happen." Briggs lied. Hawkins manipulated the report. "Those boys nearly killed your sister." Zarya clenched her jaw. "They didn't even check her pulse at first. And then they tried to arrest you," Helena added sharply. The disbelief in her tone was acid-sharp, as if you were the threat. The news anchor continued, "Sources confirm that school administrators attempted to downplay the severity of the incident. However, newly leaked security footage contradicts their statements. Westbrook High officials have not responded to requests for comment." Helena turned off the TV abruptly. For a moment, no one spoke. The house felt too quiet, too still, the calm before legal war. Then Helena exhaled and opened her folder on the dining table. It was filled with documents, printouts of screenshots, transcriptions of live stream audio, lists of witnesses, timestamps from the camera feed, and notes scribbled in her precise handwriting. Zarya stepped closer. "You're filing something?" Helena didn't look up. "Not something. Everything." She flipped to a page labeled Civil Rights Violations. "This school failed to protect you. Worse, they protected the boys who attacked your sister. Hawkins tried to distort evidence. Briggs tried to intimidate students. And Cade's father?" Her voice hardened. "He thinks his donations make them untouchable." Zarya watched silently. "You two are not alone in this," Helena continued. "I've dealt with cases like this for 22 years. They will not bury you. They will not bury the truth. I'm preparing a lawsuit against the school district, Principal Hawkins, Officer Briggs, and the Miller family." Zarya drew a slow breath. "They're going to fight back. I'm counting on it," Helena replied. "That's how they make mistakes." Across the room, Zola shifted slightly and winced. Zarya rushed to her side, kneeling beside the couch. "Does your head hurt?" she whispered. "A little," Zola admitted softly. "But I'm okay." Helena approached and brushed a hand through Zola's hair. "We'll get you checked again tomorrow, sweetheart," she said gently. "But tonight, I need you both to rest. Things are going to get louder from here." Zarya nodded. She already felt the pressure building outside the constant ping of notifications from her phone. The sound of reporters gathering at the end of the street, the weight of strangers turning her family's worst moment into headlines. But she didn't feel fear. She felt certainty and responsibility. She returned to the sofa as the TV replayed the news segment silently in the background. Cade's smirk, Mason's raised bat, Zarya carrying her unconscious sister through the courtyard. Zola's hand reached out. Zarya took it instantly. For a long moment, the sisters sat in silence, fingers intertwined, breaths synchronized, the world outside roaring, while the living room felt suspended in time. Then Zola whispered, voice shaky but determined, "Zarya, I remember." Zarya froze. "What do you remember?" Zola swallowed, squeezing her sister's hand. "Everything. I remember Cade blocking me in. I remember Mason lifting the bat. I remember Cade saying I should know my place. I remember falling," her voice trembled, "and I remember him saying he'd finish what they started." A sharp breath escaped Zarya as emotion flooded her. Helena turned slowly, shock flickering across her face. "Zola, are you certain?" Zola nodded, eyes glistening. "Yes, I remember it all." Helena closed her folder gently, almost reverently. "That's it," she whispered. "That's the missing piece." Zarya pressed Zola's hand against her cheek, tears burning behind her eyes but refusing to fall. Zola looked up at her sister and said quietly, "I remember everything." With those words, the final barrier to exposing the truth crumbled, and Zola's testimony would become the missing piece needed to tear their lies apart. The living room no longer felt like a home, it felt like a studio. Bright camera lights had been set up beside the fireplace. Microphones clipped discreetly onto cushions, and two reporters whispered behind their equipment as they prepared an exclusive interview that would air across the city. Zarya sat beside her sister on the couch, one arm wrapped protectively behind Zola's back. Their mother stood a few feet away, arms crossed, expression sharp and unyielding, a guardian watching every word, every movement, every angle. The camera light blinked red. The interview began. The reporter leaned forward gently. "Zola, are you ready to talk about what happened?" Zola took a shaky breath. Her fingers searched for Zarya's, intertwining with them tightly. "I'm ready," she whispered. The reporter nodded. "You can start from the beginning. Whatever you're comfortable sharing." Zola swallowed. Then she spoke, voice trembling at first but strengthening with every sentence. "It didn't start yesterday," she said. "Cade has been following me for weeks." The reporter's eyebrows rose. "Following you?" Zola nodded. "He would wait outside my classrooms, walk behind me in the halls, make comments under his breath." Her voice dropped. "He liked when I was alone." Zarya closed her eyes, jaw clenched. Zola continued, "At first I ignored him, but then he got worse. He started calling me names, Making fun of my hair, my skin, things I can't change. The reporter hesitated. Do you remember specific things he said? Zaria's grip on her sister's hand tightened. She didn't want Zola to relive it, but she also knew the truth had power. Zola nodded. Yes, I remember one very clearly. The room held its breath. He walked past me one day and said, her voice trembled. He said, girls like you should be grateful anyone even notices you. Zaria felt something break inside her chest. Zola continued, and then Mason started joining in. He told me if I ever talked back, I'd regret it. She looked down at her hands. I guess he kept that promise. Zaria squeezed her sister's shoulder gently, wiping a tear before it could fall. The reporter leaned in. Zola, what happened the day of the attack? Zola inhaled shakily. The camera zoomed slightly, capturing every flicker of pain and memory in her eyes. I was walking behind the gym. Cade blocked my path. He said he wanted to teach me respect. Mason came from behind with the bat. Too created some. Her voice broke, but she pushed through. I asked them to stop. I begged them, but Cade just laughed. The reporter nodded gently. Do you remember the moment Mason hit you? Zola closed her eyes. I remember seeing the bat rise. I remember Cade saying, she hesitated. Zaria whispered, it's okay. Say it. With trembling lips, Zola continued. He said, you people never learn until someone knocks you down. A heavy silence fell. Zaria's breath hitched. That sentence, it's cruelty. Its venom ripped through her again like a reopened wound. She turned away, covering her mouth, shoulders shaking. Their mother stepped forward instinctively, placing a steadying hand on Zaria's back. The reporter let the moment breathe. Then softly, Zola, what happened next? Zola touched the bruise on her temple. I felt something hit me. Hard. Everything went black. Zaria opened her eyes, filled with tears she refused to let fall. I woke up to Zaria crying over me, Zola whispered, and the boys, still standing there. The camera captured the rawness, two sisters haunted by the same trauma in different ways. The reporter's voice softened. Why tell this story now? Zola looked straight into the camera. Because it's the truth, and because they tried to hide it. Her voice grew stronger. They tried to blame my sister. They tried to rewrite what happened. But the truth is simple. I was attacked, and they wanted me to stay silent. She lifted her chin, courage glowing beneath the bruises. But I won't be silent anymore. The room stilled with the weight of her words. The cameraman lowered his equipment slowly, as if even he needed a moment to process the magnitude of what had just been recorded. The interview wrapped, but the impact was instantaneous. Within minutes of posting, hundreds of comments, then thousands. Within an hour, the interview clip spread across every platform. Justice for Zola. Number, protect Black children. Number, expose Westbrook High. People reposted Zola's trembling voice. Her bravery, her scars. Influencers shared it. Local officials shared it. And then, a notification popped up on Helena's phone. A verified account. A name every lawyer in the city knew. Marcus Layton, one of the most respected civil rights attorneys in the state. His tweet read, I have seen the footage. I've heard Zola's testimony. If the family is willing, I will offer full legal representation pro bono. Zaria's heart stopped. Malik, watching from the doorway, whispered, That's huge. Helena read the tweet twice, eyes widening with a mixture of disbelief and quiet triumph. They're scared, she murmured, and they should be. But even as hope filled the room, a shadow loomed over the victory. Because across town, in his dimly lit office, Principal Hawkins stared at the same tweet, hands trembling, sweat beading at his temples. His career was burning, the truth was winning, and he was preparing to do something desperate. A celebrity lawyer tweeted, I'm ready to represent Zola free of charge. The world rallied behind her. But Hawkins refused to fall quietly, and what he did next shocked everyone. The school auditorium had been transformed into a battlefield, one lined with folding tables, microphones, and rows of tense spectators. Teachers filled the back rows. Parents lined the aisles. Reporters waited eagerly near the exits, cameras in hand, though they weren't allowed to film the proceedings yet. At the center sat the school board, stiff and uncomfortable, their expressions carved from stone. On one side, Zaria, Zola, and their mother, attorney Helena Porter. On the other, Principal Hawkins and Officer Briggs, both visibly fraying at the edges. Zaria's heart beat steadily. Zola's fingers interlaced with hers, still trembling but stronger than they had been days ago. Helena stood between them like a blade drawn from a scabbard, cold, sharp, unbreakable. The chairman cleared his throat. "We are here to address the allegations regarding misconduct by Principal Hawkins, Officer Briggs, and students Cade Miller and Mason Harlow." All eyes shifted to Hawkins. This was his last chance to defend himself, and he came prepared. Hawkins straightened his tie and spoke first, voice dripping with fragile confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen, while recent videos circulating online appear alarming, I urge you to recognize the dangers of manipulated media. Clips can be edited, context can be distorted. What is being presented as evidence may not reflect the full truth." Murmurs spread across the auditorium like a sour wind. Zaria tightened her jaw. Zola shrank closer. Helena didn't blink. Hawkins continued, warming to his own argument. "In today's digital age, anyone can splice footage, add audio, or remove material to push an agenda. I believe, based on my review, that the videos circulating of the incident were altered to exaggerate the severity of the interaction." A gasp rippled through the room. A teacher whispered, "Is he serious?" Another muttered, "He's going to pretend a child wasn't nearly killed?" Hawkins pressed on, ignoring the disgust around him. "I understand emotions are high, but we must be objective. We must not destroy reputations because of doctored footage." That was his move, his counterattack, his last desperate attempt to rewrite reality. The chairman turned. "Mrs. Porter, your response?" Helena paced a slow step forward, her heels clicking sharply against the tiles. "Yes," she said, "I do have a response." She withdrew a flash drive from her coat pocket. Then another, each one color-coded, each one labeled. The board members exchanged uneasy looks. Helena continued calmly. "Principal Hawkins claims the videos were edited." She raised the drives. "So, I brought the original files." A hush fell over the room. "These," she said, "were obtained directly from the school's own security servers before someone attempted to delete them." Her eyes flicked sharply toward Briggs, who stiffened visibly. "They include full timestamps, metadata, and chain of custody verification." Someone in the audience whispered, "He's done." Helena moved to the projector. "Let me show you what edited really looks like." The lights dimmed as she inserted the first drive. A grainy security feed filled the screen, showing the courtyard. Cade blocking Zola's path. Mason creeping behind her with the bat. The swing. The impact. Zola collapsing. Cade laughing. It played exactly as the world had seen it, online only now, with the watermark of Westbrook High's internal surveillance system stamped in the corner. No edits. No cuts. No distortions. Just truth. The board members leaned forward, mouths slack. Several teachers covered their lips in horror. Parents gasped audibly. Hawkins's face drained of color. Before he could open his mouth, Helena switched to the next clip, the hallway footage. Mason shoving Zaria, Cade spitting slurs. The raised bat. Zaria's defensive strike. Every frame pristine. Every second unaltered. Briggs swallowed hard. Sweat glistened at his temple. Then Helena played the final recording, the audio missus. Rowe captured. Cade's voice echoed through the auditorium. "You people should shut up before I finish what we started." Silence. Cold. Absolute. Helena stepped forward again. "Principal Hawkins, does this look edited to you?" Hawkins opened his mouth. No sound came out. She turned to the board. "These videos match the live streams. They match witness testimony. They match metadata. And they match what my daughters told me. Her voice sharpened. Principal Hawkins did not protect my children. He protected their attackers. A heavy breath escaped the chairman. He looked at Hawkins with unmasked disappointment, then at Briggs with growing suspicion. The auditorium waited. Tension coiled like a drawn bowstring. Finally, a board member stood her chair, scraping loudly across the polished floor. She faced Hawkins directly. "Principal Hawkins," she said, voice trembling with controlled fury, "you are suspended from your position, effective immediately." Gasps exploded through the room. Another board member rose beside her. "You knowingly suppressed evidence of a violent assault. You misled this board, and you endangered students." Hawkins' knees nearly buckled. "You can't, it is," the chairman said firmly. Officer Briggs took an involuntary step backward, suddenly aware that his own fate was next. Zaria stared at Hawkins as he deflated his authority, his lies, his arrogance crumbling in full view of the very students he failed. Her sister squeezed her hand. Zaria didn't look away. A board member rose to her feet and declared, "Principal Hawkins, you are hereby suspended immediately." The room erupted, and with Hawkins removed, Cade and Mason no longer had anywhere left to hide. The police station buzzed with the electricity of a scandal finally breaking open. News vans lined the street outside like vultures, reporters shouting over one another as cameras zoomed in on every movement behind the station's glass doors. Inside, Cade Miller sat hunched at a metal table, wrists cuffed, his bravado shattered. Gone was the swagger, the smirk, the entitlement. What replaced it was fear. Real, suffocating fear. Across the hallway, Mason Harlow sat with trembling hands, surrounded by detectives and a court-appointed attorney. He knew the truth. Cade's father couldn't protect them now. The leaked security footage, the live stream, the audio, it all painted an undeniable picture. "Listen," Mason blurted, voice cracking as he spoke to the detectives. "I'll tell you everything. I didn't plan it. Cade told me to scare her. He said he'd back me up if things went bad." The attorney beside him nodded, satisfied. "My client is cooperating. He is prepared to give a full confession in exchange for reduced charges." Mason swallowed hard. "Zola didn't do anything. And Zaria, she didn't attack us first." "I lied. Cade told me to." Detectives scribbled furiously. The truth, finally, had a voice, and it wasn't Cade's. Outside, reporters erupted as Cade was led out of the station in handcuffs. Cameras flashed. Microphones surged forward. "Cade, do you have anything to say? Why did you attack Zola? Do you regret your actions? Is it true your father tried to cover up the assault?" Cade kept his eyes on the ground. The officer escorting him announced clearly for the cameras, "Cade Miller is being arrested for aggravated assault, battery with a deadly weapon, and criminal threats." The air crackled. Some parents in the crowd gasped. Others whispered, "Finally, finally." Students watching from behind the barricades cheered softly despite the police presence. Cade didn't look at anyone, not even when they put him into the squad car and shut the door. Minutes later, a second squad car pulled into view. This time, it wasn't a student placed in the back seat. It was Officer Briggs. Escorted out by two internal affairs investigators, Briggs looked stunned, like the ground itself had betrayed him. Flashbulbs exploded. "Officer Briggs, is it true you attempted to delete security footage? Did you falsify your report? Were you protecting the boys? Do you deny abuse of authority?" Briggs clenched his jaw but didn't speak. For the first time, the badge could not shield him. The next morning, the atmosphere at Westbrook High was entirely different from the days of chaos and fear that preceded it. Students gathered in the courtyard, whispering in awe as they scrolled through the latest headlines. "Cade Miller arrested. Security footage confirms assault. Officer under investigation. Sisters seek justice." And Zaria, quiet, composed, observant, walked through the crowd with a presence that silenced the noise around her. Malik jogged beside her, breathless. "You saw the news, right?" he said. Mason flipped on Cade. "The DA is already drafting charges. Zarya nodded quietly. I figured he would. He always followed Cade's lead. Malik nudged her arm. People are saying you changed everything. She didn't respond. She wasn't sure she agreed. She hadn't done any of this for glory. She had done it for Zola. A shout rose above the ambient buzz of students. A cluster of reporters had slipped past the campus gates before security could stop them. One of them, a woman with a bold red blazer and piercing focus, spotted Zarya immediately. "Zarya! Zarya Porter!" she called, jogging toward her. Students stepped aside, forming a quiet circle. The reporter lifted her microphone. "The entire city is talking about your bravery. But I want to ask, do you have a message for other victims of school bullying?" The courtyard fell completely silent. Students leaned in. Teachers froze mid-step. Phones lifted into the air. Recording. Zarya stood straight, shoulders squared. She didn't look at the cameras. She didn't look at the reporter. She looked at her sister across the courtyard, Zola, standing with a backpack, still healing but standing strong. Only then did Zarya speak. Her voice was calm, measured, steady. A fighter's voice, not shouting, not trembling, but grounded in truth. "I don't have advice," she said softly. "I have a promise." Students exchanged glances. Zarya continued. "No one deserves to be hurt for being who they are. No one deserves to be silenced. If someone tries to break you, you fight. If the system fails you, you keep fighting." Her gaze shifted to the students watching her. "And no matter how alone you feel, someone will stand with you. Someone will believe you. Someone will fight beside you." The courtyard held its breath. Zarya finished. "You are never as powerless as they want you to believe." Camera shutters clicked like applause. Students whispered, awestruck. The reporter lowered her mic gently. "Thank you, Zarya." Powerful words. Zarya nodded once, then stepped away, walking toward Zola. As the sisters embraced, the reporter turned back to her cameraman, whispering, "This story isn't over, not even close." A reporter raised her mic toward Zarya. "Do you have a message for victims of bullying?" Zarya's answer stunned the courtyard into silence. Zarya kept her final words for a special ceremony the next day. The sun hung bright above Westbrook High, casting long golden stripes across the courtyard, where hundreds of folding chairs had been arranged. A stage stood near the front steps, flanked by banners that read, "Westbrook High, Community Healing Forum, Standing Against Racism, Standing for Justice." Students filled the seats, first whispering, buzzing, still energized from the events of the past week. Parents followed, some holding signs supporting Zola. News reporters assembled near the stage edge, cameras already rolling. A hum of anticipation vibrated through the air. Then Zarya and Zola stepped onto the stage. A wave of emotion swept through the courtyard. Some gasped seeing Zola upright, smiling, stronger than the videos showed. Others stood immediately, clapping, cheering, raising their phones to live stream the moment. Zarya walked with calm confidence, a quiet storm that had grown sharper and steadier with every challenge. Zola walked beside her, head held high, eyes fierce, the bruises fading but her courage unmistakable. When they reached the podium, the courtyard went silent. Zarya looked out at the sea of faces, students who had suffered in silence, teachers who had doubted themselves, parents desperate for change, and reporters waiting to broadcast whatever she would say. She inhaled. Then she spoke. "Thank you for being here," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly across the courtyard. "What happened to my sister could have happened to any student, any child who looks different, walks differently, speaks differently, or comes from a different story." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Some nodded, some wiped tears. Zarya continued, her voice sharpening. "No one has the right to decide your worth because of the color of your skin. No one has the right to use their privilege to hurt or silence you. And no one, no matter how powerful, gets to bury the truth." Reporters leaned forward. Students reached for their phones. A parent squeezed her son's shoulder, whispering, "Listen to her." Zarya rested her hand gently on Zola's shoulder. My sister fought to survive something she never should have faced, and she still stands here strong, proud, unbroken. Zola raised her chin, meeting hundreds of eyes at once. The crowd erupted in applause, some students even whistling and cheering. When it quieted, Zarya spoke again, softer but heavier with meaning. We didn't come here today to celebrate what we endured. We came here to demand what every student deserves: safety, dignity, respect, and justice that doesn't depend on your last name or your skin tone. Helena watched from the front row, one hand over her heart. Principal Hawkins, no longer principal, was nowhere to be seen. Officer Briggs was suspended pending investigation. Cade and Mason's arraignment was scheduled for the following week. The system that failed Zola had finally been forced to answer. A school board member stepped up beside the podium, clearing his throat nervously. In light of recent events, he announced, Westbrook High will implement a full anti-racism reform program, mandatory staff training, a zero-tolerance bullying policy, and a student-led oversight committee, effective immediately. Students gasped. Some burst into tears. Others clapped so loudly the sound echoed through the courtyard. Zarya stepped back to the podium for her final words. I didn't stand up for Zola because I'm strong, she said. I stood up because she deserved someone who wouldn't look away. She swept her gaze across the courtyard. And you deserve that too. Silence. Then the entire courtyard stood, hundreds of students rising to their feet, teachers joining them, parents following. A thunderous wall of applause rolled across the school grounds. Zola, overwhelmed, leaned into Zarya's shoulder as she whispered, We did it. Zarya smiled softly. We started it. The applause didn't stop. Phones lifted into the air. Streams went live across the world. The moment blazed across social media in real time. Within hours, the live stream reached 2.7 million views, a number that would keep climbing long after the stage lights dimmed. As the camera panned across the cheering crowd, a final message faded onto the screen. Justice doesn't appear by itself. It is made by those who dare to stand. The last shot lingered on the twins, Zarya steady and protective, Zola proud and radiant, standing shoulder to shoulder as their school rallied behind them. The live stream ended with one final caption, and their story is only just beginning. And that's how a group of loud-mouthed bullies learned the hardest lesson of their lives. You never know who someone is until it's too late to take back what you've done. Zarya didn't just fight for her sister, she exposed a system built to silence girls like them, and she made sure the world watched every second of it. But now I want to hear from you. What part of this story shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more stories that hit just as hard, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because the next chapter will be even wilder.